The moment my own boyfriend introduced me as his assistant at the party I paid for, something inside me snapped. Stick with me while I share my story, and if it touches you, don't forget to support our channel by hitting that subscribe button, dropping a like, and sharing it with the people you care about. My name is Claire Thompson, and for months I had been working nonstop to plan a celebration for my boyfriend Ethan Miller. He had just earned a big promotion at his company, something he had been chasing for years. I wanted the night to be perfect. I booked a beautiful venue, arranged the food, and handled every detail from the decorations to the guest list. I even dipped into my savings to make sure everything looked flawless. I thought this night would bring us closer, maybe even push our relationship toward the future I had been hoping for. When the party started, people congratulated Ethan and talked about his hard work. I stayed close, proud of him, happy to see him finally getting recognized. I believed he would introduce me with pride too. I imagined him taking my hand and telling everyone I had been by his side through everything. I thought he would at least show a little gratitude. But when his boss approached us and asked who I was, I saw Ethan straightening up like he was trying to look more impressive. And then he said it. "Oh, this is Claire, my assistant. She helps me with my little projects." My smile dropped before I could stop it. Assistant. Little projects. Like I was someone he hired for casual help, not the woman who had been supporting him for years. The room suddenly felt smaller, like all the air had been sucked out. I heard a few quiet laughs. Some people just looked away, clearly uncomfortable. I stood there, trying not to show how deeply those words cut me. My mind raced. I had spent weeks planning this event, hours choosing every detail, and thousands of dollars from my own account. I had been there when he didn't believe in himself. I had talked him through late nights, helped him prepare for meetings, and held him together when he doubted everything. And now, when it was finally his moment to stand tall, the best he could do was reduce me to someone who ran errands for him. Ethan didn't even look at me. He kept smiling at his boss, completely unaware of the damage he had just done. I tried to swallow the pain, but the words kept repeating in my head. Assistant. 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 Each time they echoed, it felt like a slap. I didn't argue with him. I didn't make a scene. I just stood quietly, letting the moment sink into my chest like a sharp weight. Something inside me shifted that night. I realized that the person I had been lifting up all this time had never really seen me. Or maybe he had chosen not to. What I didn't know then was that this single moment was only the beginning of everything that would follow. For years before that night, my relationship with Ethan felt like something I had built piece by piece with patience and loyalty. When we first met, he was struggling with almost everything: his job, his bills, and even his confidence. He had big dreams, but no steady ground under his feet. I cared about him, so stepping in to help felt natural. I didn't think twice when he said he was short on rent or when he needed help buying groceries. I simply told him it was okay, that we would get through it together. At first, he was grateful. Or at least he sounded like he was. He would hold my hands and tell me that once he made it, he would take care of me the way I took care of him. I believed him. I wanted to. I thought relationships were about lifting each other up, especially during the hard seasons. So when he lost one job, I helped keep him afloat until he found another. When overtime stressed him out, I stayed up late helping him practice presentations. When he felt insecure, I reminded him of what he was capable of. It wasn't just emotional support. I took on many of his responsibilities without him even asking. If a bill was due, I covered it because I knew he didn't have enough. If he needed a meal after a long day, I made sure there was something warm waiting. I checked his emails for grammar, organized his schedules, and even researched opportunities he could apply for. I thought I was helping us build a shared future. I didn't realize I was teaching him to lean on me without giving anything back. When he learned about the promotion he might qualify for, he came home excited, but also nervous. He said he didn't want to mess it up. So I sat with him every night, going over his points, helping him shape his ideas, and encouraging him when he felt overwhelmed. I watched him improve. I watched him start to believe in himself again. And when he finally applied, I was the one who pushed him to submit it confidently. The day he got the call about the promotion, he hugged me like he finally saw me. I remember thinking, this is it. Things are going to change now. I was proud of him and proud of the part one played in getting him there. I thought we were a team. I thought I mattered. But as time went on, I began to notice something I had ignored before. Every time I helped him, he accepted it like it was expected. He stopped thanking me. He stopped acknowledging it. Little by little, My support became something he relied on without thinking. It didn't matter if I was exhausted or stressed. He assumed I would always show up. It became clear that the gratitude I thought was there had faded long before that night at the party. I just didn't see it. Or maybe I refused to. I was so busy holding everything together that I didn't notice the weight was only in my hands, not his. When Ethan told me he wanted to celebrate his promotion properly, I took it as a chance to give him a night he would remember. I knew how much this position meant to him, and I wanted to show him how proud I was. So I decided to plan the entire event myself. I chose a beautiful rooftop venue in Boston with a view of the skyline, the kind of place that made people feel important the moment they stepped in. It wasn't cheap, but I told myself it was worth it. After everything he had gone through, he deserved a night that felt special. I spent days visiting locations, talking to managers, and comparing prices. When I finally chose the rooftop, I felt relieved, thinking he would be excited. I told him the venue I booked, expecting him to smile, but he only nodded and said, "Yeah, that should work." His reaction was flat, but I brushed it off. I thought maybe he was tired from work. Next came the decorations. I picked colors that matched his company's theme and ordered centerpieces that looked elegant but not overdone. I made sure every table had something eye-catching but professional. I coordinated with the staff so the setup would be ready before guests arrived. I handled everything myself, making lists, checking them twice, making sure nothing was missed. I was running between phone calls and emails, trying to make sure the night turned out just right. I also arranged the catering. Ethan always talked about how he wanted people to see he had good taste, so I chose dishes that looked impressive without being overly fancy. I booked a small live band too, because he mentioned once that music at corporate events always felt dry. I wanted him to feel proud when he walked in. I wanted him to see that I put effort into every detail. But throughout the planning, something felt different. He didn't ask me how things were going, didn't check in, didn't show interest. When I tried telling him about the menu or decorations, he barely listened. He was constantly on his phone, sending emails or rehearsing things he wanted to say to his bosses. If I sat next to him, he barely looked up. It was like his mind was somewhere far away, and I wasn't part of it. At first, I tried to understand. I knew big promotions could be stressful. I told myself he was just overwhelmed, that once the night came, he would relax and appreciate everything. But the more I worked, the more I noticed how cold he had become. Every time I mentioned something I arranged, he gave short replies. If I asked for his opinion, he would shrug or say, "Whatever you think is fine." It felt like I was planning a party alone for someone who didn't even care I was doing it for him. Still, I kept going, because I believed that once he walked into that beautiful rooftop with all his coworkers and bosses gathered, he would finally see the effort I put in. I imagined his face lighting up, maybe grabbing my hand and thanking me. I didn't know then that the only thing waiting for me that night was disappointment. The night of the party, I arrived early to make sure everything was perfect. The lights were set just right, the tables were arranged neatly, and the food was being placed exactly the way I had planned. I watched the band do a quick sound check, and for a moment I felt proud. All the hours I had put in finally showed. When Ethan walked in with a few coworkers, I expected at least a smile or a small thank you. Instead, he gave everything around him a quick glance and went straight to his team, barely acknowledging me. I tried not to let it ruin the night. I stayed beside him quietly, waiting for the right moment to join the conversation. As more people arrived, his boss, Mr. Collins, approached us with a friendly smile. He congratulated Ethan loudly, patting him on the back. I stood next to them, ready to be introduced properly. I thought this was finally the moment where Ethan would show some appreciation. Mr. Collins looked at me and said warmly, "And who is this lovely woman with you?" Before I could open my mouth, Ethan spoke first. He straightened his posture like he wanted to look important. Then he said in a casual, almost careless tone, "Oh, this is Claire, my assistant. She helps me with my little projects." My breath caught in my chest. Assistant. Little projects. The words hit me so quickly that I didn't even react at first. I just froze, trying to understand why he would say something like that. A few people nearby laughed lightly, not in a cruel way, but in the way people laugh when they think something is meant to be a harmless joke. Others just looked uncomfortable, like they sensed something wasn't right, but didn't know how to respond. I could feel heat rising in my face, but my body wouldn't move. I tried to smile politely, but it felt stiff and forced. Inside, something sank deep, like a heavy stone dropping into water. I had spent weeks planning every detail of this night, and the man I loved couldn't even acknowledge me as his girlfriend. Instead, he reduced me to someone who ran errands for him. Mr. Collins seemed surprised. He looked at me with a confused expression, as if he expected Ethan to say something different. I gave a small nod just to avoid making the moment more awkward. Ethan didn't look at me once. He kept talking about work, about his plans for the new position, about how he wanted to stay professional. I felt invisible standing right beside him. As the conversation continued, I could see some co-workers exchanging glances, the kind that said they knew something was wrong but didn't want to get involved. I stood there quietly, hands clasped, trying not to let my emotions show. My heart felt tight, like someone was squeezing it. It wasn't just embarrassment. It was the sudden realization that all the love, effort, and support I had given him meant nothing to him in moments that mattered. I didn't cause a scene. I didn't speak up. I simply stayed there, feeling smaller with every passing second. And in that moment, surrounded by people, music, and lights, I felt more alone than I ever had in my life. After that humiliating introduction, I tried to stay calm and blend into the crowd. I didn't want anyone to see how shaken I was. I walked toward the refreshment table, hoping a few minutes alone would help me breathe again. But everywhere I went, I could still hear Ethan's voice in my head, calling me his assistant, like I meant nothing more than a convenience. A little later, I noticed Ethan standing with a small group of co-workers near the balcony. They were laughing and chatting loudly. I didn't plan to go near them, but as I walked past to get to the other side of the rooftop, I heard my name. I stopped without meaning to. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, but his words came through clearly in the cool night air. One of his co-workers asked, "So, is Claire your girlfriend? You didn't mention anything before." Ethan let out a short laugh and said, "Oh, I don't like mixing business with personal life. It complicates things." Then he added casually, "Claire is better in the background anyway. She handles things well from there. Better in the background." For a moment, I thought I misheard him. But he repeated it again when someone else commented on the party setup. "She's great with details, but I don't bring her into my work circle. It just looks cleaner this way." The words hit me harder than the introduction earlier. At least then, I thought maybe he made a mistake or he panicked. But now, this wasn't panic. This was how he truly saw me. Someone useful. Someone who made his life easier. Someone who wasn't good enough to be seen beside him when he wanted to impress people. I felt a sharp pain in my chest, the kind that makes it hard to swallow. I turned away quickly before anyone could see my expression. My eyes burned, but I forced the tears not to fall. I walked toward a quiet corner of the venue, pretending to check my phone, but my hands were shaking. All this time, I had believed we were partners. I thought we were building something together. I thought he valued what I did for him, the late nights, the money I spent, the time I gave, the way I pushed him forward when he couldn't push himself. But in that moment, it became painfully clear that he only valued what I provided, not who I was. He used my support, my planning, my savings, and my love to help him climb higher, but when it came time to acknowledge me, he chose to hide me. He didn't want people to think he needed help. He didn't want anyone to know someone had stood behind him for years. He wanted the credit without the connection. I leaned against the railing and took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. The city lights below blurred through the tears I kept trying to blink away. I didn't want to cry at his celebration. I didn't want anyone to see me break. But the truth was impossible to ignore now. He didn't see me as his partner. He saw me as someone who worked for him, someone who made his life smoother while he pretended he did everything on his own. And that realization hurt deeper than any public embarrassment ever could. I stayed in that quiet corner for a long moment, trying to pull myself together. I knew I couldn't leave without talking to him. Part of me still hoped there was some explanation, some reason he said those things. I didn't want to believe he truly saw me that way. So I waited until he stepped away from his group and headed toward one of the side hallways near the restrooms. I followed him and gently touched his arm, asking if we could talk for a minute. He looked annoyed, like I was interrupting something more important. Still, he followed me to a private spot near the service door. I took a breath, steadying my voice, and asked, "Why did you introduce me as your assistant? And why are you telling people I'm better in the background?" He rolled his eyes immediately. "Claire, not this again. You always take things too seriously." His tone cut deeper than his words. I wasn't raising my voice. I wasn't accusing him of anything. I just wanted honesty. But he acted like I was being dramatic for even asking. I told him exactly how his introduction made me feel. I told him how humiliating it was. I reminded him that I had spent weeks planning this entire event, and that the least he could have done was acknowledge me as his girlfriend. Instead of apologizing, he shrugged and said, "It's not a big deal. I just didn't want to mix things tonight. You know how these people are." I stared at him, stunned. "You didn't want to mix things?" I asked quietly. "Ethan, I paid for all of this. I planned every part of it. You didn't want to mix things, but you had no issue letting me do everything for your celebration." He looked irritated now, as if I was ruining his night. "Well, you offered," he said flatly. "That's on you." Those words stopped everything inside me. I felt them like a slap, sharp and cold. He didn't deny it. He didn't soften it. He didn't care how I felt. He said it like it was the most reasonable thing in the world. I repeated his words under my breath, not because I didn't hear them, but because I couldn't believe them. "That's on you." In that moment, something in me changed. The pain that had been sharp and overwhelming just settled. It didn't disappear, but it no longer confused me. It no longer made me question myself. Instead, it became something steady, something clear. He didn't value me. He didn't appreciate my sacrifices. He didn't even respect me enough to acknowledge what I had done for him. All the excuses I had made for him over the years suddenly sounded foolish. I had given so much because I believed he cared, but now I could see he only cared about what I provided, not who I was. I didn't argue with him anymore. I didn't try to make him understand. He had shown me exactly who he was. And for the first time, I actually believed it. I looked at him one last time, took a slow breath, and simply said, "Okay." He smirked, thinking he had won, thinking I was letting it go. But I wasn't letting anything go. I was just done holding on. I walked back into the party after that conversation, but everything felt distant. The music, the laughter, the clinking glasses, they all blended into a dull noise that didn't touch me anymore. I looked around at the venue I had paid for, the decorations I had chosen, the food I had ordered. All of it suddenly felt like proof of how blind I had been. Ethan didn't deserve any of it. He didn't deserve me. Instead of staying, I quietly picked up my purse from the table and slipped toward the elevator. No one noticed me leaving. Not even Ethan. He was too busy entertaining his co-workers, smiling proudly as if he had achieved everything on his own. When the elevator doors closed, I finally let out a long breath. It wasn't a sob, not even a shaky exhale. It was more like a release. A quiet shift inside me. The moment I walked out of the building and into the cool night air, a calm clarity settled in my chest. I wasn't going to cry anymore. I wasn't going to beg for respect. I wasn't going to stay in the background like he said. I went home and sat at my dining table, staring at the blank surface for a moment. Then I pulled out my laptop. If he thought everything I did was on me, then I was going to make sure he understood exactly what that meant. I started gathering every document I could find, bank statements, receipts, invoices, text messages showing him asking for help, the contract for the venue with my name on it, and even the proof of the catering deposit. Every dollar I had spent, every responsibility I had taken over, every task I completed for him, I collected it all. I saved, printed, and organized everything neatly into a folder. As I worked, I realized just how much I had done for him. Rent payments, utilities, groceries, gas money, unexpected bills, all listed out clearly, all in my name. There were months where I had covered almost everything because he said he was in a rough spot. Now that I looked at the numbers, it was obvious I had been carrying more than half of our life together without noticing how heavy it was. But I noticed now. I wasn't doing this to get revenge in a loud, dramatic way. I didn't want a fight or an argument. I wanted something better, distance, control, and closure. I wanted to pull away from him slowly and cleanly, without giving him the chance to twist anything or make excuses. I planned to cut off every kind of support he had come to rely on. No more covering rent. No more paying his share of the bills. No more helping with his work. No more driving him to interviews or proofreading his emails. He would have to stand on his own, just like he claimed he always had. I would handle everything legally and calmly. I would protect myself first. And whether he understood it or not, this was the moment his easy life ended. He thought I was better in the background. He was about to find out what his life looked like without me there at all. The morning after the party, I woke up with a steady kind of determination. There was no anger left, just a quiet understanding that I needed to take back my life. I started by canceling every contract that was still tied to my name. The rooftop venue had a remaining balance for future services, So I called and informed them that I would not be continuing anything connected to Ethan. The catering company had a follow-up order Ethan wanted for a smaller office event. I canceled that too. The band had been scheduled for a later celebration his team wanted to hold. I sent them an email politely withdrawing the booking. Every payment was connected to my account, so ending them was simple. By the afternoon, Ethan's phone started blowing up. I didn't answer his messages. I didn't feel the need to explain. All the services he bragged about, all the arrangements he pretended he organized, suddenly disappeared, leaving him scrambling to explain why nothing was confirmed anymore. But that was only the beginning. Over the next week, Ethan's new role became heavier than he expected. Without me helping him, he was completely unprepared. He asked me if I could just look over a few things, but I calmly told him I needed to focus on my own work. He didn't like that answer, but there was nothing he could do. The stress got to him fast. His boss gave him tasks that required organization, planning, and smooth communication, the very things I used to quietly handle for him. Without my help, he missed deadlines. He sent out a report with multiple errors. He forgot about a meeting he was supposed to lead. And because he had spent so much time proving to everyone that he was professional, the mistakes stood out even more. His boss, Mr. Collins, pulled him aside after one particularly messy week. I heard about it from a mutual friend who attended the same meeting. Apparently, Mr. Collins asked him why his image had suddenly changed. He wanted to know why Ethan seemed distracted, disorganized, and unprepared. Ethan tried to blame stress, but people noticed the truth. He was struggling without the unseen support he had always depended on. The downfall didn't happen all at once. It happened piece by piece. A missed task here, a forgotten file there, a tone-deaf email that irritated a major client. Every small problem stacked on top of the previous one until even Ethan couldn't hide how overwhelmed he was. When his team planned another office event, and he claimed he could handle it alone, he failed to book a venue, messed up the guest list, and sent the wrong dates out twice. His co-workers were frustrated, his boss was embarrassed. And suddenly, the same people who once admired him began to doubt him. The image he worked so hard to build, the one he insisted on maintaining so strictly that he pushed me into the background, started crumbling right in front of him. For the first time, Ethan stood alone exactly the way he claimed he wanted. And without me behind him, that shine he loved so much faded fast. He had taken me for granted for years. Now, he was beginning to understand what life looked like without my support at all. Claire opened the door only halfway when Ethan appeared outside, looking nothing like the confident man she had seen at the party. His shirt was wrinkled, his voice shaky, and his eyes filled with panic. He tried to step inside, but she didn't move back. He stood there, confused and desperate, and for a moment she simply looked at him quietly, letting the silence make him uncomfortable. He finally admitted that everything at work was falling apart without her. His projects were delayed, his boss was asking questions he couldn't answer, and nothing was running smoothly. He said he couldn't do any of it without her help. His voice broke as he tried to defend himself, but the excuses sounded weak even to him. Claire didn't raise her voice or show anger. She stayed calm, almost detached, because she had already moved past the phase of trying to understand him. She reminded him, in the same tone he once used at the party, that assistants only help with small things. She asked him how he expected her, just an assistant, to be the person who carried his entire career. Ethan froze, and she could see the moment he finally understood the weight of his own words. His face changed slowly, his pride slipping away as he realized he had minimized the very person who had supported him the most. He tried to explain that he never meant to hurt her, that he was under pressure, that he had made mistakes. But Claire had heard all this before in different forms. She told him that wanting her help now didn't erase how he treated her when he thought he no longer needed her. She said she had spent years giving him everything she had, while he gave her only excuses and shame in return. Ethan's shoulders dropped as he realized there was nothing left he could use to convince her. Claire told him she wasn't angry anymore. She was simply done. She said she needed peace, stability, and respect, things he had never offered. She didn't list the ways she helped him, didn't remind him of the money or the sacrifices. She only said that real partners stand beside each other in public and in private. She watched him struggle for words, but nothing came out. For the first time, he understood he was standing in front of someone who no longer needed him. When she gently closed the door, he didn't stop her. He stood there staring at the wood between them, knowing that his downfall wasn't caused by lack of help, It was caused by the way he treated the woman who had been his greatest support. Claire walked away from the door feeling lighter. She didn't feel guilt or fear, only clarity. For the first time, he felt the emptiness of losing her, and she felt the freedom of choosing herself. After closing the door on Ethan, Claire felt a calm she hadn't experienced in years. It wasn't a sudden burst of happiness, but a steady understanding that she no longer needed to carry someone who never valued her. She had spent too long bending herself to someone else's expectations, sacrificing time, energy, and even money for a man who didn't see her worth. Now she was free to focus on herself, her dreams, and her future. She decided to take all the experience she had gained over the years and build something of her own. Starting small, she began planning events for friends, neighbors, and local businesses. She poured herself into every detail, from venue selection to catering and decoration, making sure every project reflected her creativity, taste, and dedication. Unlike before, this time she didn't do it for anyone else's approval. She did it for herself. Word spread quickly. People who attended her events began asking for her help, impressed by the precision, elegance, and warmth she brought to each gathering. One day, she received a call from Mr. Collins, one of Ethan's former bosses who had attended the rooftop party. He had noticed how Claire had managed everything flawlessly, and he wanted to hire her for a major corporate event. She accepted with confidence, knowing this was the recognition she deserved. With every event, Claire's reputation grew. Clients praised her professionalism and creativity, and she finally felt seen and respected in a way she never had before. She no longer depended on anyone else for validation or support. She was building something entirely her own, step by step, and it felt empowering. As for Ethan, the news of Claire's success reached him eventually. His promotion had long since collapsed, and he struggled to regain the image he had carefully cultivated. Watching her rise without him left him with nothing but regret. He realized too late that the foundation of his achievements had always been Claire, the one he belittled, overlooked, and took for granted. Claire didn't gloat, and she didn't look back. She didn't need to. Every event she completed, every satisfied client, every step forward reminded her that she was capable and strong without anyone holding her back. She rebuilt her life on her own terms, proud of the effort, skill, and heart she put into everything she did. She also learned a vital lesson. Respect and recognition are not given. They are earned and protected. She would never again let anyone diminish her worth or treat her as someone secondary. Every smile of satisfaction from a client, every successful event, and every moment of peace reinforced her confidence. For the first time, Claire felt truly free. She walked forward into her future with dignity, strength, and the knowledge that she could create her own success. She had turned betrayal into motivation, humiliation into clarity, and neglect into independence. Claire's story wasn't about loss. It was about reclaiming her life and proving to herself that she was unstoppable when she believed in her own value.